Welcome. My name is David Orban, and this is Searching for the Question Live. We talk about technology, how it evolves rapidly, joltingly, as I used to say, and how it is impacting the world, not only making us able to do things that we couldn't before, but allowing us to dream things that we couldn't dream before. And through technology, we can acquire new degrees of freedom. We can fly, we can explore the world and the universe. And of course, technology brought us the digital world, which is a universe on its own. And the concepts of exploring and understanding the digital world as a place that we can thrive in so many different ways through new degrees of freedom that we yearn to build and to preserve. And in some ways, to me at least, this is the promise of the metaverse, to allow human flourishing in ways that are really completely new and that are becoming uh, consolidated in our daily existence in the world that we have built over the past decades, and that is now the basis of our plans for the future. Well, we are going to talk about the metaverse, the kinds of metaverses that we can build and the ones that we should build with Wagner James Au, the author of Making a Metaverse That Matters. James, welcome to Searching for the Question Live.
Hey, David. How's it going? Good to see you again.
Yeah, as we were chatting before going live, we reminisced that we met in real life, IRL, in 2008
Yeah,
in
wow.
San Diego, and that is a bit ago. And probably 2 3 years before that, we met in Second Life, uh,
hmm
as you were an embedded journalist in Second Life, and
Yeah.
I was, just looking around, asking people what they thought this actually meant, and I met you as well at the time, and here it is, these avatars that 20 years later are kind of the same. So, um, how did you start your journey in exploring the metaverse? Why did it attract you and then kept you to the point where 20 years later you are as passionate or even more passionate than before about it?
Yeah. Well, it's started really reading Snow Crash like a lot of people, as a kid, and being really inspired and excited by the novel and seeing parallels of what I was experiencing in the early, internet and early computing, but just thinking, wow, it could finally evolve in this direction and thinking along those lines. And then was a freelance journalist in the early 2000s, and was mostly writing about games as a kind of evolving art form. And that's when Linden Lab brought me in to show an early demo of what ended up being Second Life. And that's you mentioned the embedded journalism role. That's how that happened. Is I kind of thought, I sort of said, well, I'd sort of like to work with you all. And they thought, well, maybe you could be a journalist inside the world, your avatar. I created an avatar reporter, and so I got my avatar going around and would start interviewing people. And to answer your larger question, one of the very first people I met was this really cool cyberpunk looking chick who'd created a mansion by the sea. And it was really beautiful and had a monorail. And while we were talking, she casually mentioned that she was homeless in real life. She was squatting in an abandoned apartment building, and I was just blown away. I ended up actually meeting her though, but yeah, she was someone who was able to rebuild her life through virtual worlds, through the content that she was creating, and it really was something that was mentioned in Snow Crash, and it was actually starting to come true. And I keep constantly coming across stories like that in Second Life and VRChat and other worlds, and I still think it's the big untold story of the internet generation. And so I feel like I I, uh, I have no choice but to keep telling these stories because if I don't, there's not enough people to tell them
And
besides
I invite our viewers to visit your long going,
running blog.
long running, exceptional blog. It should be inducted in the Computer History Museum by this time,
Wow.
as a cultural artifact, even though obviously it is part of the Internet Archive, as many
Mhm.
websites for sure. Um, because on New World Notes, very diligently, very constantly, and great curiosity, you keep telling stories like the one that you mentioned of wonderful empowerment, and the ability of human ingenuity to overcome through technology the otherwise omnipresent obstacles that in the world, in the physical world, it makes it hard to make it for many. Um, Actually, let's talk about that. I am one of those people who don't care about my avatar representing my physical appearance.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is because, well, in the digital worlds, I look for something new rather than reinforcing and reestablishing what I'm already familiar with. Do you believe that this is a significant way that we could look at people, those that want to reinforce the reality through a reenactment of reality, and those that want to
Mhm.
diverge from it instead, to live a life that otherwise they can't, or to become something that otherwise they can't?
Yeah, that's a very important question. I explore a lot in the book, a lot based on the research of Nick Yee, who was a PhD at Stanford, and he's really kind of the expert of avatar expression. And he makes the really great point in the book that the choice of avatar defines what the world will become. So if you have as a default attractive looking humans as your avatar, then inevitably it structures the experience around, well, if I have attractive avatars, I guess I need attractive clothes, I need a nice looking house, I maybe want a car. So it starts reshaping kind of our materialistic modern society. And this is simply because of the avatars being the default choice. If you had uh, default choices that were not only human, but like a robot, an alien, something that you could totally create that people have never seen, it would shape the culture in a different direction. So, Second Life, for example, people were encouraged in the beginning to be much more expressive with their avatars. So people would come in as robots. I interviewed someone who looked like Marcel's Duchamp's nude descending a staircase, the painting, and they somehow made their avatar look like this cubistic form. And so, yeah, really enhanced this creativity that you're talking about. People can express parts of their personality in ways that would not be possible otherwise in real life. So that's really exciting and also important if you don't want the experience to get kind of to narrow casted to this sort of Barbie type of virtual world, really, which is a lot of the virtual worlds are having that problem, including Second Life.
And the book that you mentioned, of course, is the one that you published a few months ago, making a metaverse that matters. This is your third or fourth book,
Yeah, third book.
and
Thanks.
it looks at how the different features and characteristics of metaverses can be the basis of something sustainable and successful, or actually fizzle out, or at least
Yeah.
require an effort that is not within the reach of many companies.
Hmm.
Now, Snow Crash, as you said, defined the metaverse for a lot of people. And a viewer is commenting on the fact that Marconi allowed communications that transcended physical barriers in real time. So, yes, however, I wouldn't call the telegraph a metaverse.
No.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh, so, what are the um, what is the minimum viable product of a metaverse that you say, okay, it may be low resolution, it may be whatever other things that we would like to improve. However, these features are such that I can call this a metaverse.
Yeah, so I follow what is described in Snow Crash, and so if you take the essentials of what's described in Snow Crash, it's a vast virtual world that's immersive, simultaneously accessible by millions of people from all over the world, with highly customizable avatars, powerful creation tools, and it's integrated with the real world economy and external technology. So by real world economy, in other words, for example, you could take your virtual currency and convert it to cash, US dollars, euros, or whatever. And external technology, that could be anything as simple as a world, the web, or as you see in Snow Crash, now we see in real life, people who are handicapped are able to navigate in the metaverse through various connections like brain connections and so on. So yeah, those are the essentials. And I really, I begin the book with that because during the metaverse hype wave of the last few years, there's sort of this, a lot of Sturm and Drang around what's the definition. Nobody knows what it is. And it's like, it's described in very biblical detail in Snow Crash. And not only that, there are multiple platforms that are very large and successful, which have all these key features. So Roblox, Fortnite, Rec Room, VRChat, Second Life's on the lower side, but still very thriving. But yeah, these are platforms initially described by Neil Stephenson, but technologists have been working on trying to build something like it for the last 20, 30 years, and they are succeeding. So yeah, that's what I start with.
Yes, the simultaneous ability to participate in a shared space as immersively as possible. Those of us who love Second Life love to criticize it for its lack of support for the visors. That has been a long problem with it, a long issue, a long-standing issue. But still, we have been accustomed to feel our identity projected onto the avatars, even through a 2D monitor. It wasn't necessary to have a visor and physically walk around in a relatively restricted um, room or space like we do now with our headsets in those newer metaverses.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to ask you more about the shared experience, how the ability to create and sustain communities with their own rules of participation, with their ability to manage those rules and evolve those rules. How is that important or even a defining feature of the metaverse?
They're very important. You want some basic rules in place that that foster inclusivity and diversity and encourage community engagement so that people feel like they are part of a community. So you want to feel also that they're going to be protected from bad actors, because that's a recurring problem not only in metaverse platforms but just online games. You're going to have trolls, you're going to have assholes. So you want ways to deal with them. Either, really bad actors, just have them removed, or there's other ways that you can kind of isolate them, or even just encourage them to be creative in a more productive manner. So, you can have crazy avatars, which are not trolling, but they're just kind of fun. So that's really important. That's, I think, a thing that people miss is to enforce those rules, even if officially or on a societal level, you want a very strong community management team that really is there to be encouraging, to keep nudging people in a positive direction. So that's really good. And then, what will happen is if you inculcate that culture early on, then the people who are first there will kind of inculcate it to others who come in, the newbies, because you're going to have this constant cycle of new users coming in. So it's always important to really get the culture right in the very beginning.
One of the great ways that Second Life allows experimentation and different communities to welcome newbies and then progressively make them more and more able to express themselves is the unification of the user experience and the creator experience. Creators in Second Life are able to use the interface itself to well, at the beginning, just manifest a cube and then see it fall on the ground through gravity. And that is an amazing experience to see, oh, my digital avatar and my digital universe are under my creative control. And it is a lesson that almost no other metaverse understood. Can you give examples? Are there examples of other metaverses where this unification is present and so exciting?
Yeah, well, Minecraft, of course, is really the largest example of that, and it didn't really begin as a metaverse platform. It is basically now, because it does have a integrated economy and user generated content. But yeah, it has that same sense of being able to reshape the world, and it just creates amazing serendipity. So it's really succeeded that way. Though a thing to keep in mind too is just avatar expression in itself is a type of user creativity, and there's amazing groups and people that are just creative through their avatars. But yeah, like I think Minecraft is the biggest metaverse platform that has that gold standard of being able to create within the world and reshape the world while you're in it, and that's very exciting. Most of the other platforms have shifted to an offline creator. Even Second Life, most of the stuff now is created with a Blender and other mesh tools that you upload the mesh into the world. But I think that loses the magic of being able to create serendipitously with other people at the same time. But that's why Minecraft is so huge.
That is a great
2009.
example.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Now, another holy grail, uh, also fraught with its own challenges, is how do you establish portable digital assets, starting with an avatar identity, an avatar handle, but then very quickly moving on to objects with the immediate example. What will you do when a space-based adventure allows the laser gun to be brought into a medieval game? Uh, so, what do you think are the desirable kinds of components of interoperability that
right.
could render different metaverses with portals that connect them more than the sum of the parts.
Yeah, I get into this in detail in the book because I think the metaverse interoperability question has been kind of taken in a very bizarre direction. So it's sort of what you mentioned. It's the can I take my laser gun into a World of Warcraft, and really it's just on a technological level. Not only is it difficult to do, but also it just there are different physics, different ways that 3D models interact in different platforms. So the challenges are really insurmountable, and it's sort of a problem that people are not trying to solve. So there's that issue, and then what I really emphasize is the thing that is important with interoperability is interoperability of community, of your friends, of people that you have a strong personal emotional bond with. And that's what is really important, I think, is being able to go from, for example, Roblox to Fortnite, and be able to know if your friends are on that platform, and bring them in. And that's, I think, what companies should be focusing on, not on 3D objects. Like, people don't really care about that. Like I said, it's just not very feasible. um, what's happened, and this is a missing opportunity that people have missed because they're so obsessed with interoperable objects, is Discord has become so huge because that's basically the de facto interoperability of community. What happens is you make friends in VRChat, and then you have a Discord server with them, and then you go to your friends in the VRChat server. Hey, let's go check out this new, this new Fortnite map or another world, and then you go in from there and you say, "Oh, my username is so and so." So Discord has kind of taken over that, just because companies have not really worked on creating interoperability of user identity, and so that's what's happened now. Though I think I would like to see more interoperability efforts done. I mean, the companies are not incentivized to do this because Roblox does not want to lose its users to Fortnite and vice versa. So, you know, that could be the reason that Discord becomes not only the de facto, but really the jure interoperability platform for all these platforms.
It is interesting because the way Discord started was by providing the shared voice channel, audio
Oh yeah,
channel for gamers who could coordinate in their attacks while talking to each other. Hey, I'm coming from the left, I'm coming from the right. And the groups could be more effective. And that is where Discord started. It's interesting, by the way, that Philip Rosedale's latest company, Philip, of
oh
course, is
yeah,
the founder of Second Life, called High Fidelity, is concentrating on providing an audio experience, however, superior to Discord in a spatial manner,
spatial audio.
where
Yeah,
where the person farther is sounding softer, and the person closer is louder, as well as, of course, stereoscopic left and right experiences. Um, and we have started to see Discord as the login page for successful platforms. Probably
yeah.
the most famous is Midjourney, that
Hmm.
not only uses still at today Discord as one of their possible login options, but
Right.
they are also originally were living inside Discord. You would create your images in Midjourney by interacting with a Discord bot, and that is very interesting. Last time I
Yeah,
looked, they have they have 20 million people on their Discord server, with
yeah.
one
It's
2
huge.
million simultaneously in it as well. So um, you mentioned the ability to integrate with the payment systems of the physical world.
Right.
And by the way, I purposefully avoid the uh, virtual real dichotomy.
Hmm.
I consistently call them digital and physical because metaverses are not less real for the people who dedicate their passion, their creativity to them than the physical world. And as a consequence, calling them virtual rather than real, in my opinion, is counterproductive, or it diminishes the value that the people who are passionate about them derives from the participation.
Right.
So when we talk about integration into the payment systems of the physical world, I always am astonished that 30 years after Tim Berners-Lee created the HTML and HTTP standards,
Hmm.
already expecting that payment systems would be integrated, defining the error code that the protocol would respond with if the payment was not completed or supported. Well, 30 years later, still there is no browser that supports payments natively,
Yeah.
which is just absurd. And I think it
Yeah.
is very simply witness to the power of the traditional payment gateways, credit cards, and banks
Hmm.
that have been able to practically slow down for decades now the diffusion of internet native payments. When Second Life started, very rapidly banks would open branches in Second Life, and
Hmm.
that was a big no-no. That
Yes.
immediately triggered a visit from the Secret Service meeting Philip and Cory Andreka and told
Hmm.
them, as far as I know, and you can confirm whether this anecdote is true, that they have 30 days to close that shit down. Otherwise, they would be in big trouble. And anti-money laundering and supporting
Right.
terrorism and drug trafficking and pedopornography. These are um, the four horses of the internet apocalypse that
Yeah.
can be unleashed against you by anyone, anytime, basically. And
Yeah.
so I am not surprised that they caved. Um, Now, that means that we stopped seeing banks opening branches in Second Life, but still the constant issuing of Linden dollars to avatars
Right.
remain a defining feature of the Second Life economy, a kind of a universal basic income that Second Life residents could count on, and that really kickstarts the economy. Um, and
That's
uh,
right.
and it was a defining feature.
Oh yeah.
Um, so how do you see the complex and unsolved issue of managing from a macroeconomic point of view a purely digital economy while
Hmm.
interacting with the physical world? Is it something that metaverses are addressing well, or are they kind of ambiguous about it?
Yeah, none of them really succeeded in coming up with a better solution than Second Life did, because it's a virtual currency in legal terms. I think it's more of a limited license, and so you still have to cash out, you still have to pay taxes, and you still have to do all the things that your local government will ask you to do once you have that income. But the other solutions, really, it's there hasn't been one that's really, you know, there's been all these attempts to integrate cryptocurrency, but then that's coming up against the same problem. So I wonder if it's kind of too late. Like these platforms have become too large to say, well, now we're going to introduce a virtual currency and it's going to be valuable on some level, commensurate with a real world currency. I don't know. I was just thinking Philip Rosedale's newest startup is called FairShare, and that's a digital currency. And I've talked with him about it, and there's plans. You can use it in real life, and you can use it in various virtual worlds. So that's another attempt. He really got into the weeds of. I was like, well, come on, the regulators are going to come in, and I think he's thought through all these problems. So there's still interesting attempts, though. Roblox is a publicly traded company, so it's going to be very hard for them to introduce anything like that. So it's immersively. I don't know if it makes much of a difference. It's just especially most people pay 10, 20 US dollars, euros a month or something with their virtual content. So it's not a huge amount of money for most people. So that could be another solution that's not really a problem.
You mentioned cryptocurrencies, and there has been like a huge wave of attention towards the metaverse when in a very interesting mixing of different new concepts, NFTs and cryptocurrencies and Web3 identities, not hijacked, but really tried to embrace the metaverse concept a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah.
For someone like you, how did that feel? Was it like, oh my God, the barbarians are coming, or
yeah, a
or
little
was
bit.
it, let's hope they succeed, because we want millions of new people, and the wave waned, at least temporarily.
Oh, yeah.
So how do you feel about that, those that wave 2 years ago?
Yeah, I was supportive at first. I was one of the first people to write about, for example, Decentraland, because they used Ethereum to raise, I think it was $25 million worth of Ethereum to build a virtual world platform. But what I quickly saw was they were kind of putting the cart before the horse. They were putting the monetization piece before the virtual world, and that's what led to their collapse. None of them have a large user base. They're all very small, because really inevitably what happens is if you start with the idea that this virtual world is going to make your currency valuable or your virtual property valuable, you get land speculators, you get currency speculators, people who want to make a buck. They're not there to be in a virtual community, and that's what we see now. I talked to a sociologist who went into Decentraland, and he was talking. It was like a American ghost town, which used to be like a gold rush community, but the gold's not there anymore. So it's just kind of a sort of a dead town. So that's what they're dealing with. Though I should say, what's interesting is Neil Stephenson kind of inspired cryptocurrency as well as the metaverse. His book Cryptonomicon described a lot of the concepts that became Bitcoin. So it's sort of this strange paradox where his book Snow Crash inspired the metaverse, and that actually led to successful platforms. But then he has his other novel inspired cryptocurrency, and that's been mostly questionable, if not outright, leading to crime and other, scams. Even though Neil himself has a metaverse startup called Lamina One, is trying to integrate both of them, but so far that's not been successful, and I'm very doubtful it will ever succeed.
I think that you touched an important point when you said that you cannot or you shouldn't try to put the cart in front of the horse. The economy is what gives rise to money because it needs a unit of account and a medium of exchange. And the economy itself arises when there is a community that that is able to produce value, and it is the transfer of that value in the case or what we are talking about, digital community and digital value, that creates the economy and that needs the money. And then the money will then turn into all kinds of different institutions and regulations, and it will give rise to finance and derivatives and whatever else. Sure. If you start with those things, then you are very likely going to attract pathological behaviors that only concentrate on that layer and disregard or completely misunderstand the basis that should indeed be supporting everything else. So I think that is a very, very important piece of knowledge that you provided. Irena is appreciating our conversation from LinkedIn. And
we're friends.
And so a lot of the effort is done by corporations, obviously working for a very understandable profit motive. Second Life gave rise to an open source clone that still exists, if I'm not mistaken. But unfortunately, a promising open source platform that provided interoperability between browser-based interfaces and Visor interfaces developed by Mozilla was abandoned. And even though there is a dedicated foundation to hubs, to me, it doesn't seem like they are progressing towards ease of use and wider adoption that is really necessary. And this is a pity. How do you see the role of open source in supporting healthy metaverses that matter?
That's a really good question because, on a broad level, I really support the open source movement. And of course, open source keeps our internet running because most internet servers are on Linux. I think the virtual world component, it makes it difficult to have something open source because we've seen this problem with Second Life. They not only open source the like OpenSim, but also they open source the viewer, in other words, the software that you use to access the virtual world. And the open sourced it, Linden Lab did, and that led to multiple different Second Life viewers, and they were very innovative and impressive. But the weird paradox was and is that the majority of Second Life users now use an open source version of the Second Life viewer. So their perception of reality, literally on a fundamental level, is different from other users, and that's hobbled Linden Lab since that's happened. Because if you have a new user coming in who says, "Oh, I've heard about Second Life and I'm amazed it's still running. I'd like to go in," and they create an account, they download the official software, but the official software is totally different from what the majority of the users are using. So the interface really is part of the world. It's part of the immersive virtual experience. But if the new user has a totally different perception of reality, interaction reality, than the established user, then it's not going to work well. In fact, that's kind of been one of the problems that's prevented Second Life from growing. Is he's like, new users come in, and the first thing they're told is, well, that software you don't use that. Download this whole other program from this organizations that's not even the company. So it leads to those kind of problems. So open source, I think, at least on the experiential immersive level, I don't recommend. I mean, on the back end, there could be some fruitful ways of having different server types. Like sort of like with Minecraft, you have different servers and there's different rules and so on. So maybe on that level, but that's going to be the challenge. Is you have to think about how the open source aspect is going to change different users' perception of the immersive virtual world.
And that is not a problem we have ever had in the physical world, because through billions of years, we have evolved in a common code base. And that is the guarantee that our perceptions will diverge very little. And when they don't, we are quick to label the diverging perceptions of reality hallucinations, or the people who are saying they are seeing ghosts as crazy, or whatever other ways that are enforcing this shared reality that we must be able to rely on if we want to be able to build together our future. It is one of the dangers of the acceleration of technological change, because technology makes literally incredible things possible.
Mm-hmm.
And if those incredible things, for example, flying in an airplane, take time to get understood and absorbed and adopted by everyone, then it is okay, it works. But if this technological innovation makes magical things possible too rapidly, before people interacting through it have an equal opportunity to absorb its meaning, consequences, and to some degree, at least, the way it works, then our shared reality breaks down. And we stop being able to agree on what constitutes the world that we see around us. And I see that as a real danger, especially coming through the innovations in AI, that a lot of people are discounting at an excessive degree, because they see it underperforming when they see it first, and then when they come back, it's too late. It has already become superhuman in its performance, or at least that is what a lot of people believe and fear. And so, how do you see this new wave of AI supporting or detracting from the metaverse? A lot of people are talking about digital twins and very valuable industrial applications where AI simulations can evolve optimal layouts of some industrial plant that we wouldn't have the time to find otherwise, and people being able to go in their visors and look around and say, wow, this really is great. Is that something you believe is a useful direction for research and metaverse applications?
Yeah, well, so that's kind of broadly fits under the umbrella of what's called the industrial metaverse. So it's a virtual world, and it's typically behind a firewall that you can have this virtual world and you can integrate it with various types of content, like a digital twin that could interact with the real world. It's really exciting. It's sort of a adjunct to the metaverse in the snow crash sense, because it's not one that almost by definition is not going to be accessible by millions of people because it's behind a firewall. But it's big companies like Siemens and so on are doing things like that. And no, that's very cool. I think, and I mentioned this in the book, for the industrial metaverse to take off, you really want the actual metaverse in terms of platforms like Fortnite and Roblox and so on to continue growing, because the amount of people who enjoy being in an immersive experience, it's still about 1 in 4 people. If you look at all the data, people who like being in a 3D experience. If it's a VR headset, that's even much smaller. And I talk in the book, there seems to be a biological gender divide in terms of women have a strong propensity to get females have a strong propensity to get nauseous in VR. So we don't want to make VR the default. That's sort of a option it should be. So that's an important thing to understand. But yeah, that said, yeah, definitely ways of simulating immersive experiences, like you're saying, with creating buildings and prototyping it and having people experience that. One possibility that I've seen experimented with, and I'd like to see more, is you can create different models and put them in a world, and you probably want some kind of game experience, some kind of social experience, but see how people interact with it. And that's a way of designing layouts in the real world, see how people really navigate in a world. Because the great thing about immersive experiences is you do feel like you are there on some level through your avatar. And so that's really exciting. As far as AI, that's still kind of in a fluffy state. A lot of hype in Silicon Valley, and I hear a lot of conversation around, we're going to be able to generate virtual worlds just through prompts, and people are going to go in these virtual worlds. And I think there's a core misunderstanding of why people find these virtual worlds exciting in the first place. It's because you can shape the virtual world through your mouse, through your VR gloves, and you have the tools that it's pretty easy. Even an average person who's not an artist or doesn't consider themselves an artist is able to create really amazing things already before AI prompting. So what the people who are advocating more AI prompting in the metaverse have to explain is why people would want to do that when you can already be very creative with a basic simple mouse. I've seen interesting ways of integrating them. Like there's this new game I invite everyone to check out called Tiny Glade. And you basically sit there and you make beautiful castles and meadows. And there's a lot of procedural generation. So that's a variation of AI. So if you are creating a castle and you put a stone there, you'll also see like some plant life grow around it. And it'll sort of mold what you're doing while you're creating. So it's a really interesting integration of AI and human creativity. It's a huge game already. It's an indie game, came out of nowhere. It's got over 500,000 players. So I think that's a more fruitful way of thinking about AI integrating with the metaverse is where the creativity is still human driven and AI enhances it and makes it easier and simpler, and takes away a lot of the kind of grunt work. It takes away a lot of the fiddling. Like if you create, from scratch a 3D world, you have to put in a lot of really fine details and can get really tedious. So you want the AI taking away the tedious part. You don't want AI replacing the human artistry part. Yeah, let's see. Yeah. And these are all user made. AI is only helping assist, but they're all human made, and they're really amazing.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for the tip. I will definitely check it out.
Right. Yeah.
Now, another wave that took the metaverse aficionados by surprise was Facebook's rebranding into Meta.
Yeah.
And then spending $15 billion. And we don't yet know for what, because they already closed a few things, like they still have on their website Meta Horizon workrooms, but as far as I know, that is already something they decided to kill. And
Yeah.
they have just started opening up Meta Horizon worlds in many places. So, what do you think first uh, of the visors? Quest,
Hmm.
first of all, but then maybe also Apple Vision Pro. And what do you think of the strategy that Meta sold to their investors for sure,
Right.
but I don't know. I don't know if anyone else understands.
Yeah. Well, I devote a lot of this in the book because I think it's still very undercovered in general. Is when well, it's called Facebook back in when Facebook bought Oculus, the VR headset startup. Um, Dana Boyd, who was a senior researcher at Microsoft, posted a very widely shared essay saying, I did a lot of research on this, and there seems to be, like I mentioned before, a propensity of women and girls to get nauseous in VR. And her kind of provocative title, she said, is the Oculus sexist? And I looked into this, like, wow. So you're suggesting that research is that half the population cannot use these VR headsets that Zuckerberg is promoting. And I looked into it, and yes, there's a lot of research. There's been multiple reports. Women have a strong propensity. I've seen data as much as women are twice as likely to get nauseous in VR as men are. And so,
Amazing.
yeah, Meta has spent, what was it, 20 billion or more on trying to make VR mass market, and you know, sort of ignoring the fact that half the population tends to get nauseous with this. Um, and I really think it's kind of a cultural presumption. There's just sort of, it's mostly run by dudes, and they're not thinking through these issues just because they're not listening, to the population say, well, no, I got sick. I mean, they were giving, this became a big thing when they were rolling it out. People were, they had like barf bags or motion sickness pills that they'd have to take afterward. So yeah, that's a huge problem. And it's only slightly attenuated if you have AR experiences where you're seeing the real world, and there's even challenges with that. And so that's going to be a challenge even with the Apple headset like that you mentioned, the Vision Pro. So yeah, that's an issue that they've had to deal with, and that really they started um, on the wrong foot, and they're sort of stuck there because they've spent billions. There is a user base now with the Quest. It's like maybe 25 million or so. So there is a niche user base, though most of the users are not on active users. But yeah, that's a huge challenge, and that's why I emphasize you really want to shift away from VR as your main main usage of a metaverse platform. You can definitely use it. A lot of people do find value in it, though. I think what VR should be is mainly used for therapy and for training. There's really powerful use cases there that Meta, in its quest to replace the smartphone, is really not focusing on. But for example, there are tens of millions of people in hospitals. They're stuck in a bed, and I've talked to VCs in the medical community saying, this could be really powerful, but you can't have a Quest headset that you have to log into a store and all of those connections. You want something that's as simple as a nurse being able to put it on someone's head, and that could lead to attenuating their pain. Definitely give them a place to connect socially with other people. And it really, actually, frankly, it really makes me angry that the VR industry has not focused on these applications that would be really valuable to actual human beings. And I place the blame primarily on Zuckerberg and Bosworth at Meta. They're focused on trying to create a platform that's competitive with Apple, and they're ignoring all these use cases. And so those use cases have taken a back seat to this pursuit of a mass market that's not there with VR.
Well, especially because the Quest is a very closed ecosystem, so
Yeah,
third-party developers are unable to develop the kinds of vertical applications that you mentioned because
right.
they would have to put the apps on the Quest
Sure.
store,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's not the point. That is not the way. Um, definitely. So,
Yeah.
James, the people who want to follow you can connect with
Yeah.
you on X. You are
Yeah.
SL Hamlet in
Yep.
remembrance of your origins.
Yes. Yeah.
It I don't know if it is still the case, but Second Life would issue and then retire last names that avatars
Oh,
would
yeah.
adopt, and
Yeah, they still
so
do that.
you could tell someone's age in world through their last name, at least for some
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
So
no, that's still going on, yeah.
I am Agnon as last name in Second Life, and you're Hamlet. This was wonderful. Thank you very much. And I am really intrigued by the depth of your analysis as you look at uh, the metaverse that matters, because the metaverse can matter. Uh, uh, I believe
It
that
does.
the share of our digital experiences in our lives is bound to increase. The only way for it to uh, maintain a given share, whatever it is for our physical life to extend, which is something I'm also in favor of. But if our lifespan stays as it is, digital experiences will have an increasing share of our attention and the value that we bring in the world and we receive from the world. So the effort that you are making is really very valuable. Uh,
Hey,
Ivo
Ivo.
Hein also saying hello. Thank you, Ivo. Nice to see you. And Emiliano will have the opportunity to meet me IRL in Dubai
Wow,
week. So
cool.
that happens as well. So uh, James, thank you again for being here today. It was
Thank you,
wonderful.
David. You too. Great to
Thank you, everyone, for being with us today. Searching for the Question Live explores technologies, their impact on your lives, your communities, and the entire world that is changing based on what we discover, what we invent, what we implement, driven by our curiosity, our passion, and our desire to find solutions to the challenges that we see around us in the world. See you soon.